Hello again. Welcome back to this recording. In this session, I will try to relate the concept of the key resources I have discussed in the previous recordings. Sure you listen to them so that you can have a background, so that you can understand this better. There is the relationship between, or the connection between, the concept of key resources, that is time, energy, money, and other resources, with the academic education that usually people get from schools, usually at a younger age, but as you grow older, you also get some form of education. So, in my understanding, I believe that education is usually a wide approach of training someone in very many areas. Of course, most people believe that what you get from school is usually the academic knowledge, and it is measured in terms of the grade or the certificate you got. For example, in my case, I went through the 844 curriculum of education, whereby you go to primary school, secondary school, college or university, and in all those levels you get your own certificate. However, through my observation, I have discovered that education is more than just the academic part. Of course, the academic knowledge you acquire there is it takes the largest part, but even in school, what you are taught relates to the resources I have discussed. So it is my belief that at school they prepare you to work later on. Even when you are working, you do part-time study. Those are the things I believe that you are enforced to do much better. For example, at school, the largest part you do is acquiring academic knowledge, abilities, skills, and even developing talents. For example, those basic which I have taught at a very early age. It's like the ability to read, ability to write, ability to speak in various languages like English, Kiswahili here in Kenya, and even vernacular languages, like in my case it is Kikuyu language. Then you have things like ability to do simple mathematics, and then experiments, all that. Those are the things that you are taught at the very basic level, and they build your line of study going all up, even when you complete the education. However, it is my discovery that in addition to all the things you learn in school, whether it is branded to be a knowledge-based, competency-based, skill-based, there is an addition to that. For example, in school there is an emphasis to manage time well when you are studying, because you realize in schools all the lessons are arranged in terms of time. They take 45 minutes, 1 hour, all that. So if you relate that to the work you do, you realize that even in the workplace there is usually the aspect of time, whereby the work or the duties you are performing, they are organized in terms of time. So in some way, if you are very good in managing your time when you are in school, there is a high likelihood, even when you are given work, wherever you work, or even you work for yourself, you will manage your time according to, you will organize your time and manage it well. Then the other thing, it is in terms of, again, these forms of energy I'm talking about. So if, for example, in a school, if you look at it, in a school, the aspects of energy are there. say like physical energy, emotional energy, emotional energy, spiritual, social energy, or that even mental energy. They, the teachers are trained to enable you to develop all those abilities. For example, things like physical education, that is PE, they are put there to develop your physical abilities. And then things like mental energy, you need to think, you need to translate your thoughts into written content. That is the ability to think. That is what mathematics is all about. Instead of doing all things in your head in quotes, you are taught how to translate them into paper. So those are very important skills or abilities. Then there are those God-given abilities like seeing, listening, walking, touching, feeling, and even or that even smelling, the five common senses. So that is what education centers are out. First of all, the education setting, what they look for is what are the abilities you have. There are those who have physical disabilities and even mental disabilities. There are very many. Even speech or speaking disabilities, visual impairments. So those are the things they consider to tailor your education to make sure you understand all that. And if you look, all those things are very important when it comes to work and even in living generally. So those are the purpose of education is to take you through it based on what you have originally. For example, if you have the ability to hear, the ability to see, the ability to walk, the role of the teacher is to put in education to enhance those abilities. Then, if you have those impairments, there is a special education teacher who is trained to handle all that. Then, from there, those abilities, they relate to the various forms of energy I will talk about. Say physical, you need to be physically active. If you have physical disabilities, there is a way to navigate through that. Then we have the social energy. How do you interact with the other people? There is an aspect of communication there. Teachers are very sensitive in how, it begins with how you speak, the words you speak, and then it goes all the way to how you speak with other people. Social interactions, they are very attentive to all that. Then we have things like emotional energy, how satisfied or happy or unhappy with education in general. So they try to make it like you like that. And then you have things like spiritual energy. I realize this is a broader topic that may need another recording, but spiritual energy is actually maybe the most fundamental thing to know in terms of education, because I believe even education branches out of, say, religion or knowing God and the church and all that, and even other religions. If you look at the beginning of education, it comes from religion, whereby you are told to acquire knowledge. Even most of the schools, they are somehow connected with the church. In my experience, if you go to Arab countries where there is Muslims, you will find that most of the schools there, they are connected to the Muslim, religion and community. If you go to China, those Buddhists and all that. If you go to India, there is the Hinduism. There is a connection between the education that you get and the religion of the people in that country. So there's a very related connection between education and religion. Then from there you have, those are the energies. Then in a school, there is spending of money. You realize that in a school there is money paid for a student to learn, and that money comes from the fees you pay, tuition fees, all that. And then there are children who are about money. There is accommodation, there is all that, even buying the materials you buy. So it is important for a student to be made aware by their parents or their caregivers and guardians that education is usually not for free. You are given some money to facilitate your education. And if you look at it, even at the workplace, you have to spend some money for you to work. You don't go to education to study for free. Even this government-supported kind of education, whereby you have bursaries and all the projects of the government, it is all money involved. So there is no education for free. So that money, it is good for a learner to know that once it is paid for you, don't take it for granted. There are those who don't get paid. There are cases where you pay everything for yourself, but if it is paid for you, it is also part of that. Then you have the other resources, which are the resources bought with money, not bought with money. For example, if you look at a student at the basic level, elementary or secondary or tertiary, you realize there is those learning materials they need. For example, the most basic one is an exercise book, then a pen or a pencil, a rubber. From there you move on to a bag, you move an electronic device, say a computer. Then you move to what? Even the uniform, even the sporting equipment like a ball or something. Then you have the required books. For example, you have basic books where you buy whenever you are going to school. You have a dictionary, you have a Bible, an atlas, a log book, logarithm book, have rulers, you have so many things. Then those are the things you buy before you go to school. And usually every term when students are going to school, there is a list of things you should report with to do that work. I tend to believe that's the same case when you're going to work. In some cases you'll be told, come with this, come with that, so for you to do the work. Then from there you have the resources that you don't buy with money. These are the things you know how to do. There are some cases whereby before you go to a school, you do some tests. They try to assess your knowledge. And if you don't score the required marks or what they have set, you cannot qualify to join that college or university or even secondary school or even primary. Now we have CBC. I am sure there is some way they require you to, before you join those schools, there is an assessment of there is even a student interview before they join the school. So it's like you can compare it to the job interview you do before you are hired and employed. So there is some requirement of things you should have. You should have, say, knowledge and good qualification, and they test for all the things. So that is also a requirement. So if you look at it, the purpose of education, maybe most of it is to teach you the subjects and all that, but there is an aspect of showing you how time is managed, how your energy, how your abilities are developed, how your money is facilitating your education. Then we have how your resources that you buy with money. Students don't expect you to be, tearing down papers and all the academic material, all that, and it connects you with how you will do the work. Of course, it takes time. For example, if you look at the 844 curriculum, there is the primary education, which used to take 8 years. Then you have secondary education, takes 4 years. University or college education can take, say, 4, 3, 5 years. So you can imagine all that time. And the one thing that supports your education is the certificates. Most people, okay, that is the prime. But over that time, there is what you acquire. In fact, it is beginning to appear that even the learning materials you acquire from there, they are very important. For example, in our case, we used to study all the subjects, certain course units. You realize that there is nowhere you get that education again. And if you go to work, what they do, now the learning materials you use in school, they become training materials in workplace. So if you are very good in understanding all that, it becomes easy. And I believe the same way you are good at managing all these key resources, say time, energy, money, and resources at school, whether it is primary, secondary, or tertiary, you'll be very good in managing them at the workplace. You are a good time manager in school, you might be a good time manager at work. Good energy manager, personal energy manager at school, you can be a very good person in managing your energy at the workplace. Then even things like money, if you are given some money to cater for your education, you can use those skills to manage money well when it comes to work. Then from there you have other resources, those things that have been bought for you to study. They're very good because they will be given, you'll buy for yourself in this case to do the work. So that is the training you get, and over time you realize education and work, they are very closely related. For example, if you look at the setting, because the education takes place within space and time, if you look at the setting or the location where education takes place, it is usually in a school, but usually people live at home, students live at home. So during your schooling days, you spend most of the time at school and at home. When you are working, you also spend time at home and at school. So you see that switch of home setting. And if you look at it, even at school, there is usually an allocation of all the resources you need to work. For example, you are given your own desk, your own chair, there is a classroom. So even at the workplace, that is translated to maybe an office, whereby you have your own chair, you have your own table. All those facilitation is designed to make you a very good worker. And then there are sometimes at school you'll be given some work to do at home. You call it a home study or something. So when you go home, you do your studies at home, and then when you report back to school, you show the results. It's the same even at the workplace. They give you assignments or the work. In some cases, you do it at home, and then you show the results in your work. So in some way, education and work They are closely interrelated, because if you are very good at studying at home and studying at school, chances are even when you start working, you'll be very good at working in the organization premises. They could be offices or sites. And then there is, the work that you do at home at night or during the day or the weekends. That is also a requirement. And in most cases, you'll find even the design of homes, they have been, customized to include spaces like, a study room at home for students, and then a home office for those who are working outside, so that a home setting facilitates both study and work. So you see, all this organization and all the resources you need, the tools you need are available, both tangible and intangible, so that you can facilitate all that. So I believe if you welcome that idea of applying the key resources, you relate them from school to work, it is possible to uncover even more and improve it, so that work becomes easier, and there is a correlation between education and work. Of course, even the measurement of performance at school, they are usually almost similar to the measurement of performance at the workplace. So that is a very important thing to know, so that you don't get outside the scope of what you're supposed to be doing. And I know most people believe, I also believe that an academic certificate is the one that shows how well you are. It is usually not the case, because I have come to realize that if you have some certificate of education, there should be some other academic material that supports that certificate. Usually you will not show it to someone else, but personally you should have it. For example, the performance or all the learning materials that led up to you to getting a grade, say starting from A to E, A, B, C, D, E. You should be able to have all the lessons, all the things you have learned that supports that achievement. Even at the work, what matters is not usually it is not only the results. The process also matters. There is a great mistake, or maybe not a mistake, to summarize the study for 4 years with just one single document. There should be other supporting documents to prove that. And then, even at the workplace, what is usually summarized as an achievement at the end of a month, a quarter, a half a year, or a year. There's usually those supporting, work reports. Those are also important, because they are the meat of work and study. So with that, I believe it is important for students and workers to keep their records very well, because they will help them in learning. You will know every time how you can be able to track how did you get to the final results, whether good or bad. How did you get, what is your academic track record, the work record. How have you come up to these final results? If you can be able to track all that using paper or digital technology, you'll be able to improve even further. And now we are in the age of computers and internet technology. There is the age of big data. This data is now digitally recorded. For example, it should be possible for a person to access all their history of academic performance, the history of their work performance, so that you can know where to improve and where to go forward. So with that, I believe it is possible to even improve further the relationship or the correlation between work and study, because that is where the most of the action takes place, and that is how everything we do is related and connected together to improve our well-being. And with that, it is possible to achieve much better results going on with time. It should be noted that education and work takes time, and the evaluation and assessment of either academic performance and work performance, it is done over periods of time. Usually the end result is what is visible, but they are preceding kind of reports which should show how well you have come up to the final results. This is very fundamental. It is very important to know that, because also education takes place in time, within time. If you are to apply some of the basic things we know about education, for example, is a technique called 5Ws and 1H. The 5W include the where, the when, the why, the what, and then the who. H is for how. So if you apply it to education and work, you realize there is a correlation. Nothing takes place in vacuum. There is people involved. There is a place. It takes time. There is a reason for that. That is the why. There is a method. So all the methods you apply in education, they are likely and they bring positive results. If you apply them in the work, they will be very good. They will deliver good work results. Again, it is important to notice that the hard work that you put in to acquire education, that hard work, you must put it in place to implement that education so that it can help you. So the hard work in school can give you good grades. The hard work at the workplace can give you better work results, which compensates mostly in terms of payment. So hard work is required in all areas, but the reward is different. So with that, I believe can begin a conversation or an exploration to this area, and I would encourage further research to make sure we understand these areas better. For that, I believe you have understood the connection between school and work, and going forward, there is hope for further improvement. Thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great time listening to my recording. Thank you, and God bless you. Goodbye.